This one goes out to every single person whose Halloween costume as a child was a black pointy hat and a black rubbish bag. You are so valid. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today, if you are not a big Halloween horror type of person, but you still want to get into the spooky season situation, I have got some really great witchy books for you to go and check out. Some of these will be more romance-led, some of these will be more fantastical, some of them will be slightly contemporary, but all of them have got witchy characters at their base. I am not a big spooky horror type of person, but I love the coziness of a witchy book. And I have found some really great witchy books that have carried me through the whole of October in previous years. First up is the Gravesglen series by Erin Sterling, which has got 3 works in it. First one is The Ex-Hex. This is following Vivi, who had a dalliance with Rhys about 9 or so years ago that ended pretty badly. So she decides to curse him. She has got a candle from Bed Bath & Beyond. It's kind of a autumnal apple cinnamon type scent. So she's not expecting that the curse that she has put on him is going to actually do anything. Except that it does. 9 years later, Rhys comes back to Gravesglen because his family was the ones that set up Gravesglen in the first place. And he, as a Penhallow, is coming back to the town so that he can recharge the ley lines. This is going to be the source of all of the magic for Gravesglen, but also for his family. And almost as soon as he sees the town up ahead of him, things start to go desperately wrong in his life. And Vivi realizes that while she may have been a trainee witch and her powers weren't super powerful back then, she's done a lot more damage than she was expecting. I really loved the chemistry between Vivi and Rhys. And what I also actually loved is that Rhys and his entire family are Welsh. As somebody who myself is Celtic, I'm Irish, but Wales feels like our kind of Celtic cousins. So I've really loved seeing a family from a situation and a culture with which I am so familiar. The second book in the series, The Kiss Curse, follows Vivi's cousin Gwen. She has been running a magical shop, Something Wicked, in Gravesglen for years and years, but things are starting to get a little complicated because now she's got some competition. Wells, who is Rhys's brother, has moved to Gravesglen so that he can set up a little bit more magic in the area, and he has opened Penhallow directly across from Something Wicked. They enter into a rivals to lovers situation that is so wonderful to read. The final book in the trilogy is The Wedding Witch. This is following Bowen, who has always lived a life of solitude in the Welsh mountains. But when one of his friends invites him to one of the biggest witching weddings of the century, there's kind of no way that he can turn it down. Also in attendance at this wedding is Tasman. Now, Tasman is not magical herself, but she has been around witches for so long and she's always had a vested interest in the magical world. Things might be going a little bit skew ways when Tamsin finds out who Bowen really is. I absolutely love the coziness of this series, and I think that they're also a pretty good kind of a turn into winter story, mainly because The Wedding Witch takes place around Christmas. So if you don't get to it in October, fear not. There is still plenty of opportunity for you to get into the festive feeling because you can just bring it into November, no problem. Another great series to look out for is the one by Lucy Jane Wood. This starts off with Rewitched. Rewitched follows Belle, or Belladonna Blackthorn. She's approaching her 30th birthday, and in the coven that she is part of, when witches reach their 30th birthday, go ahead of the coven and have to fight to keep their magical powers. It turns out that her magic hasn't really been used in the way that they were hoping, so she's kind of on the chopping block here. There is a way for her to keep her magic, however, and that is for her to go under the mentorship of Artorius Day. Quite a while ago, he was kicked out of the coven and banished, and he has been on his own the entire time since. Belle and Artorius strike up this absolutely wonderful kind of grandfather-granddaughter relationship, and I just love watching them get to know one another and also really harness Belle's powers and magic. I loved the kind of nightly situations that they have where Belle will come to his house and learn a little bit more about how to control her powers and how to use them in a much better way. And things start to go a little bit wrong for them when they start looking into why it was that Artorius was banned in the first place. I absolutely love this book. It is full of 90s references, pop culture references, and it just gives that little cozy, warm under a blanket feeling. Lucy Jane's second book in the series, Uncharmed, follows Annie. She is a charming young witch who has been tasked with kind of mentoring a young teenage witch whose powers are getting a little bit too out of control. I absolutely love watching her explode in like a bunch of pink clouds and stars and sparkles and trying to help this young witch on her way to figuring out how her powers can be used. I really love this series because of all of the 90s references, because of how cozy they feel. And also, what I love about them is that while they do have romances in there, that isn't particularly the focus of the plot. What we're really concentrating on is Belle getting her powers back, or Annie trying to help this young girl figure out how to use her magic. I've absolutely loved that situation where, yeah, there might be a love interest in this book, but that's not the most important thing I've got going on in my life. If you want something that feels really similar to that, then also check out The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This follows Mika, who is one of the most powerful witches in the UK, and she has also set up a YouTube channel called Mika Moon, where she kind of shows people her magical powers. Of course, nobody really thinks that she's actually a witch, she's just doing some kind of Wiccan white witch stuff. Except for the inhabitants of Nowhere House. They know exactly what kind of a power Mika has, and they want her to come and live with them. There are three young witches who are living in the house, and in this world, every witch is orphaned quite soon after they are born. So there's nobody who is really able to teach these three young women how to hold their powers, how to control them, and how to use them. Except for Mika. The inhabitants of Nowhere House invite Mika to come along and to be a tutor for the three young witches and to help them on their way. But Mika has a couple of clashes with some of the people in the house, particularly with Jamie. He is the librarian of Nowhere House, and he has been against Mika moving in right from the start. I really love the vibes of this book. It's so cozy, and I absolutely love the found family in here. Ian and Ken are one of my favorite married couples that I think I've ever read. They just read so perfectly like that old gay theatre couple that have been together for so long. They can't imagine life without one another, and I just love the atmosphere of Nowhere House. Sangu Mandana's second Witchy offering, A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, came out in summer 2025 and is once again a cozy, wrapped up, warm blanket of a book. This is following Sarah, who is going through a bit of a difficult period at the moment. She's at risk of losing her magic, she's at risk of being kicked out of her coven, and she has also just lost her aunt, but accidentally brought her Aunt Jacqueline back from the dead. Sarah decides that to take her mind off of everything and to try and get things back on track, she is going to go and help Jacqueline to run her magical B&B. I absolutely love the idea of going to a B&B and trying to run it. This gives me huge Gilmore Girl vibes. Not just because it's an inn, but because the love interest in this book is like the inn's custodian and is incredibly grumpy. If that doesn't give you Luke and Lorelai vibes, I don't know what to tell you. I also love the idea that there's going to be a talking fox in this. I love when like animals have their own little quirky personalities in books and they're not just here as your standard pet. So this just feels like the perfect book to read in autumn. Another really great series is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley. This is the first in a kind of a magical creature series. The second book is about werewolves and the third book is about vampires. In the first book, we are following Mariel. She has the potential to become one of the strongest witches that the Spark family has ever seen, except that her priorities are completely elsewhere. Rather than spells and incantations and brews and potions, she is much more interested in baking. But one evening, her two worlds collide. When a summoning spell goes wrong, instead of summoning flour, she has accidentally summoned a demon. And now, Ozrath looks like he's going to be sticking around. Because in order to get him back to the other world, they have to complete a bargain together, and Mariel has to give him her soul. But she's quite attached to her soul, so it looks like he's going to be sticking around for quite some time. I really love the witty banter in this book, and this one is particularly steamy. So, if that's the kind of vibe that you are looking for this October, this is definitely the one to go for. For a cozy romantasy vibe, then I definitely recommend The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This is following Keela, who is a librarian at the Great Library of Elysium, and she and her assistant Kaz, who is a magically sentient spider plant, has spent the last 10 or so years matching all of their patrons with the perfect book, with a little help from magic along the way. One evening, when the library burns down, Keela knows that there is only one place that she can take shelter, and it's a place that she had never thought of herself going to. Back to her childhood home. When she is there, she is confronted by her neighbor. He's brand new to the town and he is incredibly handsome. But he has posed a couple of threats for Keela's Rajic because there are a couple of things that he needs a little bit of help with, and all of the remedies that Keela knows are slightly illegal. They are growing spells so that all of the berries will come to ripen at exactly the same time, or weed killer spells so that nothing will harm any of the plants that her neighbor has put down. This is such a cozy, autumnal, fantastical book, and it reads pretty much like a contemporary romance with just a little spark of magic in there. So, if you're looking for something that's going to slide you a little bit easily into the fantastical world, this is a really great place to start. Finally, you cannot mention witchy books and not talk about Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This is such an interesting story of four childhood friends who are now adults and have all been part of a secret government coven. They are Helena, who is the fearless leader, Elle, who is trying to balance motherhood and witchcraft, Leonie, who is now running her own side hustle coven, and Neve, who is a vet who is able to talk with animals and to ease their suffering a little bit. The safety and security of their coven might be in jeopardy, however, when one of the world's biggest warlocks has been abducted just before he was about to be brought in. And things are starting to get shaken up a little bit when a trans witch asks if they can join the coven as well. I absolutely love the inclusivity of this, and I also love the historical nods when you find out who it was that the first ever member of Her Majesty's Royal Coven was, and who it was that set it up in the first place. I absolutely love Juno Dawson's writing, and this is the perfect fantastical series. And if you are, like me, an audiobook reader, then you definitely won't be let down by this one, because the audiobooks are narrated by Nicola Coughlan, who you might know from Dairy Girls and from Bridgerton. Those are some of the witchy books that I think are perfect for your October reading this year. Who was your favourite pop culture witch? If you would love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave me a witch emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.